What happens when your high school teacher shows up as your new commanding officer? I found out during my second deployment to Iraq when our new battalion commander walked into the briefing room. It was Mrs. Patterson, my 11th grade history teacher from Lincoln High School, the woman who'd given me detention every week for 3 months straight because I couldn't stop talking during her lectures about World War II. I was sitting in the back row when she entered, and I swear my stomach dropped into my boots. Same stern expression, same way of scanning the room like she was looking for troublemakers, same disappointed sigh when she spotted something she didn't like. She started her introduction speech, talking about her 15 years of military experience, her deployments, her expectations for the unit. Professional, commanding, then her eyes found mine. She paused mid-sentence, just for a second, but I caught it. A tiny flicker of recognition before she continued like nothing happened. After the briefing, everyone filed out except me. I was hoping to slip away unnoticed, but she called out just as I reached the door. "Sergeant Mitchell, a word please." I turned around, stood at attention. She was shuffling through papers, not looking up. "Sat down," she said. "This isn't formal." The next few minutes were the most awkward of my military career. She asked about my family, my hometown, basic small talk, but underneath it all was this weird tension. Here's my old teacher, now holding my career in her hands. The real test came 2 weeks later during a convoy mission. Our unit hit an IED outside Fallujah, vehicle disabled, 2 soldiers wounded, enemy fire coming from 3 directions. I was the communications specialist responsible for calling in support, but our radio was damaged in the blast. Standard procedure said wait for backup communications to arrive. Problem was we didn't have time. Enemy fighters were moving to surround our position. In about 10 minutes, we'd be completely cut off. I made a decision that went against protocol, left my covered position, ran 200 meters to a destroyed building, climbed to the second floor with a backup radio, and called in our coordinates for immediate support. Got the medevac helicopters and air support we needed. All wounded soldiers extracted safely. Mission successful. But I disobeyed direct orders to maintain communications from protected positions. The after-action review was tense. Colonel Patterson sat across from me reviewing my report. Other officers around the table were arguing about whether I should face disciplinary action. Some said I was reckless. Others said I showed initiative. Back and forth for 20 minutes while I sat there waiting for judgment. Finally, the colonel held up her hand for silence, looked directly at me with that same expression I remembered from high school, the one that meant she was about to deliver verdict. "Sergeant Mitchell," she said, "in my classroom, you never could sit still when you saw a problem that needed solving. Always jumping up with solutions before I finished explaining the lesson. Drove me crazy for an entire semester. Thought you'd never learn to follow instructions properly." She leaned back in her chair. "Turns out I was wrong. Sometimes the best soldiers are the ones who know when to break the rules. You saved lives out there by refusing to wait for perfect conditions." She signed my commendation paperwork right there in front of everyone. Meritorious Service Award for actions under fire. The same woman who used to write me up for talking in class just recommended me for promotion. 6 months later, I made staff sergeant ahead of schedule. The citation specifically mentioned my ability to adapt quickly under pressure and think independently during crisis situations. After that deployment, Colonel Patterson transferred to a training command back stateside. On her last day, she pulled me aside one final time. "You know," she said, "I always knew you had potential. Just took a war zone for you to figure out how to use it properly." She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a book about military communication strategy, with a note written on the first page. For the student who taught his teacher that sometimes the best leaders are the ones who never learn to sit still.